of bank-owned homes, don't you?
Yeah, about 40% of my business.
And like, what's the biggest thing with indoor air, mold, moisture that we're running into with all these homes now? 40% of your work, right?
Right.
We're talking a lot of vacant homes.
Yes.
And Tom, you're from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You guys don't have vacant homes in Detroit, do you? I live in Cleveland. We don't have it. We just got a couple. You know. Go ahead, Jimmy.
We have 70,000 ready for demolition in the city of Detroit.
No.
Yes.
70,000? No.
Yes.
70,000 Detroit homes ready for demolition.
Yes, burned out.
Who pays for this demolition?
Well, we do eventually, but
Don't they grant money?
as I say, we pay for it in the long run.
Grant money is really our money anyways,
Mhm.
right? 70,000. How many are in Cleveland, Jimmy?
You know, there were a lot more in Northeast Ohio, but they've been getting through them. You know, I've been doing bank-owned houses for about 5 years, 6 years. And the height of it was probably a year or two ago. But still, there are a lot of them. I mean, but the banks are getting, like Wells Fargo had a program, and they still do, where they actually fix up their own houses for resale. Most of the other banks go through there's an FHA program called 203
Okay.
K and 203 Streamline, which allows someone to buy a home if they're going to live in it and fix it up and wrap that all into the mortgage. And of course it enables people to go spend $30,000-$40,000 fixing up a potential home that they're going to be in. And you know, it makes the deal go together. So that's the vehicle that these bank-owned houses are getting fixed up with. Some people just go ahead and buy the house and pay for it themselves if they can do that. But most people have to wrap that loan into the 203K.
And when they fix the home, I guess a big part of the home isn't like new carpets, right? New kitchen. It's making the house environmentally safe.
Well,
right?
We've tried to minimize that cost, but the thing that has concerned me for a very long time, when I started, they'd call me in to inspect these houses, and you know, we run tests on these houses. And after the first 100 tests, I said, wait a minute, all these houses
These
have
are mold tests?
Yes, all these houses have mold.
All of them.
All of them.
And even houses, maybe even houses that are occupied have mold too, right? A little bit.
Right, but the bank-owned
And more
houses
mold.
really have mold because they shut the utilities off, the furnace doesn't run, nobody cleans the house sits there for a year or two.
Without the dehumidifier,
Nothing.
without the heater,
Right.
without the air
It's
conditioner.
what you used to call the vacant home syndrome.
Vacant home syndrome.
So, then, if you test the dust in the house, mold's in the air all the time, nobody's cleaning the dust, the mold settles into the dust, and voila, you have mold. Now so we put together a system that accomplishes cleaning all the house, the entire house. We touch every surface, walls, floors, and ceilings. And then if there's condensation mold in the basement, which there normally is, or condensate mold on cabinets or something upstairs, we wipe that down with peroxide, and we're able to get that house back to a very good indoor air quality
So
standard.
basically, what happens is, let me try to understand this. The house is vacant for 6 months to 2 years, like you stated,
Right.
and nothing's being done in the house. So the house is actually like the forest, where nature takes over.
Exactly.
So nature takes over
Yes.
in the house. And the house is wood, right?
Right.
Most homes are wood.
Sure.
And it's no different than a tree log or a branch in the
Right.
woods. So
Right.
what we're doing is we
Yes.
let nature take over.
And the concerning thing to me was that there, before 203K became really popular, there were a lot of rehabbers that were buying these houses very cheap, putting new cabinets, new carpet, and painting the house, and
That's
saying,
it.
done. And then I would get calls, and from the realtor who had the buyer, and they'd say, well, we want to make sure that this house is okay. And I'd go in, and the first thing I'd do is look up in the basement, and there in the rafters is a ton of mold.
The
And I'd
mold
say,
on the rafters.
Right.
Yellow, black.
Right.
All kind of colors,
And
right?
I'm saying, well, unfortunately, everybody was looking down, doing all the stuff.
The walls are all
Right,
painted
they're all-
nice.
right, everything
the
looks
cracks
beautiful.
are all caulked up.
Nobody cleaned the ducts. Where all the
Because
dust.
you don't see the ducts.
Right. Nobody cleaned the ducts. Nobody looked up. And that's the great fault of many of the rehabbers, is that they think that just because they went in and tore out that moldy drywall in the basement, that they got rid of the mold. They didn't get rid of the mold. They poofed it all up in the air. Because mold amplifies 5 to 20,000 times when you disturb it. So in disturbing and tearing the carpets out, tearing out the bad drywall, they think, yeah, I got rid of the mold. Those houses test high as well. So over the course of the years, we've become known for our ability to go in, totally clean the house, clean the ducts, run the air tests, and show that this house is restored to satisfactory indoor air quality.
They're safe.
Yes, it's a safe house. You can move your children in and not be concerned. Because the really redeeming fact in most of these houses is that the housing stock that is being reclaimed, the houses were built in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s.
And
A lot
this
of
is
them.
like in a lot of cities, like your city, Detroit, right? A lot of old 1920s, 30s, 40s,
Right.
Cleveland, Atlanta. It doesn't really matter, right?
Right.
Older homes.
Older homes. Well, the hydro buffer capacity of those homes is very good.
Because they breathe.
Right. And the ability to absorb a lot of water is way better than the newer homes.
Because they're made out of plastic, metal studs, right?
Right.
And,
So
vinyl siding, right?
So when we go in and clean these houses, it's fine because the mold won't regrow. We use a stabilized peroxide with a wetting agent in it. And so it penetrates into the wood and it denatures the spores. So the spores won't come back as long as the moisture doesn't come back.
What's denaturing?
Denaturing means it kills the root. Soap and water will wipe mold off. It's not the problem. Bleach will take the stain away, but the molecule's this big. It won't penetrate the wood. When you put a wetting agent with peroxide, the wetting agent will force the peroxide into the surface of the wood or the drywall and actually attack the spore, the root spore itself. And
Is it called hyphae? What's hyphae? That's not a root. That just
hyphae is a form of growth.
it could be a root. It could be anything.
Right. So it actually denatures the spore, and the spore doesn't
So it
grow
kills the root.
back. Right.
That's living off the wood cellulose product of the joist
Yes.
or the stud or rafter, whatever it may be.
So it's been tremendously successful all over the country. We're very involved. We're a master distributor for the manufacturer, and we hear all of those case studies from all over, and we become very, very fond of this technology because it's so effective. But the bank-owned housing is the most wonderful opportunity for people to get equity in a home like that. But they have to make sure that
The
they're
house is
moving
safe.
into a safe house. The other big issue we find in these bank-owned houses, especially with houses built after around 78 or prior to 78, is that they have clay systems in their storm sewers and in their sanitary
So
sewers.
the drain tiles, the older clay pipes, and
Right.
the storm lines that gutters are connected to underground are all clay.
Right. I say to people when you're buying a bank-owned house, from my perspective, there are two things you've got to look at. You got to make sure the roof is okay. More importantly, you've got to make sure the drainage is okay, and nobody has X-ray vision. Superman is not here, so you've got to camera that system.
The sewer cameras.
Right.
A
And
lot of people do that, right?
no, they don't. And the ones that don't are real sorry. Like I just had an experience with my pastors, who's a good friend of mine, and we looked at about 5 or 6 different bank homes that they were very fond of, and they all had the same issue. They were all built in around the 50s, 60s. They all had clay systems. They all were jammed, loaded, because the last time a foreclosure, the least thing that a foreclosure person is going to think about when they're getting kicked out of their house is, oh, I got to clean my downspouts. You know, they sure don't think about that. They probably let that drainage system go for years.
And it gets plugged up by the tree that's growing.
Exactly.
By the silt from this clay.
Right.
By
the little tiny roots when it gets dry, the little bits of roots.
It becomes silted.
Right.
And plugged up, and it doesn't work.
Right.
It becomes restricted.
So there's been no showers, no bathroom, no washing, no nothing in that house for a long time. And so these people buy these bank-owned houses. They don't heed the warning of check that, and the inspectors don't say it either. They all gloss over it. There's only a few guys in town, you and Rod and a couple other guys, that even mention the fact that they should check the drainage system. You know, out of sight, out of mind. If it doesn't look bad, don't talk about it. Well, you got it. It's huge.
So these people buy these new homes. They're all paying new kitchens with the granite countertops.
And 3 months.
And the drain tile is plugged up.
Right. And 3 months later, they're saying, "There's water in my basement. I can't. We're having backups."
And the rehabber didn't own it long enough. He doesn't have
No.
to disclose it.
No, he doesn't know.
So he's off the hook.
He didn't take a shower in the house. But whatever the crew, they send the crew and they do a great job. They put new carpet, new paint, new shelves, new countertops, new appliances. Goodbye. They don't know. Nobody flushed the toilet. Nobody took a shower. Nobody did anything. So when we take people by the hand, we say, look, you've got to start with the drainage system. You've got to check it out and make sure that it's functional. Or if it's not functional, you've got to know the extent of the functionality, how you go about fixing that line to the street. Does the city help
And
you?
we're talking about the sanitary, storm line, and drain tile.
Footers, but yeah.
All three?
Yes, but basically
The storm lines.
the sanitary and the storm sewers.
Right.
And in Cleveland, most of this, and there's some combination in the older parts of town, they're all on combo systems.
Right. The storms and the sanitary are connected. That's why our water bills are so high.
But you've got to make sure, and then you've got to locate the break if there is one. And many times you don't have to do a whole system. You can, if the guy's smart, he has a locator on the camera. You find the broken tile. You dig down. You fix the broken tile. You water jet the rest of it out. You're done. Now you're free flowing away from the house. Now you're not going to get moisture and back up in your basement. So, and that's the other thing. I guess it was always a concern of mine that the realtors that specialize in these houses are walking in there totally unequipped. And I say to them, well, how are your sinus issues? Do you have any breathing problems? Oh, yeah. Well, wear a mask. Don't walk into a bank-owned house without a mask.
This is before the rehabber.
Yes. Just don't. You're going to show bank. It's a great market, tremendous opportunity. Protect yourself, though. You don't know what's in that house. Sometimes you walk in a house and you catch the odor right away because there's a mold VOC, an odor coming out of the basement, and you can tell that there's something going on in that house. But all molds don't stink. And so you could walk in someplace and think, oh, this is great. And you're in there for a half an hour and you come back out and you go, boy, I feel a little queasy. Well, of course you will. Because every single one of them has mold.
And plus, of course, there's other environmental, like lead paint,
We see
pre-1978 asbestos.
We see a little asbestos once in a while.
So what you're saying is that, and I'm trying to understand everything you said.
Right.
It's very important, to, if you buy a house from a rehabber that's fixed the house, you better have a guy go in there to clean the house, to ductwork
What?
and inspect it, right? And also to check with a camera the drain tile system.